Welcome back to West Texas View.
Dr. Bobby Jane is our guest today, and we've been talking about issues of mental health. And some of them are questions that we're going to be talking about today and tomorrow, are questions that you sent in or you called in, and we certainly welcome those. But I read also in a magazine that this is National Stress Awareness Month. And the first thing that came to my mind is define stress.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good question. We always say we are stressed out, but I'm not really sure we do really understand what is exactly stress and what are the symptoms of stress and how most of the people go through stressful situations without realizing that they are being stressed. So I'm glad you brought it up. In fact, thanks for bringing it up. I didn't know it was a stressful National Stress Day. I'm aware of stress, but I was not aware of this. So thanks for bringing it out. So let's define. So this is a very important topic. Let's define stress. Now, everyday living tends to encounter situations which can be destabilizing to what we call how we are.
An aggravation.
Aggravating factor. And so, for example, going to groceries, being in traffic, or anything, financial problems, whatever you deal with at your work or at home, can be defined as stress. So, when it becomes a problem, now each and every individual has an innate, inborn ability to handle stress, what we call resilience. Some people, so-called, are able to handle a lot of different situations around their life and still be able to be okay with it. Functional. A large part of this resilience is genetic. A large part of it also is dealing with the situation, how you look at the situation. We'll talk about it in a second. When I said about dealing with the situation, it's about looking at the glass half full rather than empty.
Your
right?
attitude.
Your attitude about the situation. So that is extremely important. But when I say about stress, what we mean by stress is any environmental or internal factors that tends to destabilize or threatens to destabilize our so-called equilibrium. A self of content and equilibrium, that can be stressful, can be stress. Now that's the baseline thing. So when we say about stress thing happening, what do we mean by that? Anything that, as I said, can destabilize your environment can be there. What factors make it worse? Any situations that you have that can be, for example, medical illnesses, mental illnesses, having chronic exposure to one situation that is very difficult for you to deal.
Death.
It can be death, for example.
Divorce.
Divorce, biggest ones, are the situations that tends to accumulate and tend to destabilize us. Very important. Now, what are the symptoms of stress? How do we know that we are stressed out? What really goes through your body that's stressed out? Now, whenever you are exposed to any situation that were adverse to your liking, your body tends to secrete certain juices, hormones, that are known to be helpful in the short term, but not so in the long term. So, for example, sitting in traffic, or you suddenly knew that you have lost a job or something like that. It's a big news. It's difficult to handle. So your body will immediately react to, say, palpitation in your heart, sweating, muscle being tense up, right? So, and that's helpful in the short run because it helps you cope with the situation. So certain hormones and juices are secreted in the body to cope with it. But long-term effects, if it keep on doing it, it's almost like driving your car on turbo or all your 4-gear or all 4-wheel for a long period of time. So it really exhausts whatever capacity you have.
It was good to get up the hill, but when you're going straight.
Right. So your engine will probably burn out, and that's what the stress is. So how do we know that we are stressed out? Manifestations of stress are very different in the individual. Some people think that having trouble going to sleep may be a sign of stress. Some people may have headaches, a very particular type of headache, like feeling a band around their head, or headache affecting on your neck, lower neck area. Very common sign of stress. Having belly pain, either diarrhea or constipation, or chest pain, for example, or having muscle aches and pains, or not able to concentrate and remember things, or having tenseness, your jaw is tight so much that you have pain in your what we call temporomandibular joints,
clenching your teeth.
Biting your fingernails. Those are the manifestations of stressful things, and it's very individual. It's not common for everybody else. So those are this is important to recognize that even subtle signs can be stress. Now, why we worry about it? The stress is going to happen, and we cannot avoid it. Why worry about it? The problem is if stress continues for a longer period of time, leads on to have more chronic problems, both mentally and physically. Mentally, of course, depression and anxiety are the result of chronic stress which has not been addressed. Physically, almost all ailments can be aggravated or developed by stress. Most commonly, I would say high blood pressure, GI or bowel movement problem, either constipation or
even ulcers from all of the
ulcers, belly ulcers, those kind of things, palpitations, chest pains, recurrent chest pains, recurrent headaches, so-called migraine headaches are, to a very large extent, are just a result of uncontrolled stress. So stress is very difficult to recognize because it's so different for so different people and so very individual, but it's important that you are more aware of it because if not addressed, it leads to medical problems. So how do we address stress? How do we treat and how do we address stress? First of all, recognition and the fact that, okay, stress is inevitable.
And monitoring yourself.
And monitoring yourself. So if something is inevitable, that you cannot do that. So it's important that you build up your resilience about it. The way to build up your resilience, the most important thing. Now, I make a living out of pushing pills, to speak. But in this case, I would say that medication should be the last one to address stress. One of the most maladaptive
Almost
ways.
anything in mental health.
Right, exactly. The most maladaptive way of handling stress is alcohol or substance abuse problems. The most healthiest way of dealing with stress, I would say, is exercise, exercise, exercise.
That is a great. I hadn't thought about exercise. I was thinking about talking about it, in a support group or something.
Support group, yeah.
But most people don't want to share their problems.
Yeah, particularly if something, say for example, a single mother who has 2 teenagers and to deal with and a job to work with.
And they're
this
just
typical situation.
Going all the
don't have time to do that, but they are constantly on the go and not realizing that why she's not able to sleep, why she has headache all the time, why she feels tired all the time, why she cannot concentrate.
Our program has to come to an end today, and we're going to come back next Sunday and continue this conversation because we want to talk about stress a little bit more. We'll see you next Sunday with another program.
Thanks for joining us for News West 9's West Texas View with Johnny Lou Avery. This has been a public affairs presentation of KWAB-TV and KWES-TV.